Hello, everybody. This is Dr. Dan Cordalicchio. I want to welcome you to the Destination Health podcast powered by Suburban Wellness Group. I want to thank all of our listeners today. We have an excellent guest. I want to thank you for listening. Our podcast is growing, and we really have fabulous guests on, and that's why our podcast is growing. Today is no exception. We have on Dr. Ritu Khullar. Dr. Khullar, how are you today?
We're doing good. Thank you so much for having me, Dan. It's my pleasure.
Yeah, you know what? I'm excited. And just a little bit about Dr. K. She's a board certified pediatrician, fellow of the American Academy of Pediatrics. She has a lot of pediatric experience. She's a biology major. She graduated from Stockton University, went to Ross University School of Medicine. I was accepted there, by the way. Well, we can talk about that. I was accepted there, but that was a long time ago. She has her own practice, Gold Star Pediatrics in Colts Neck, New Jersey. Welcome to the show. How are you today? How are you getting through the holiday season?
We're getting through just fine. We're getting through, trying to stay optimistic, trying to keep our patients optimistic, healthy. So yeah, that's what
it's 2020 has been a tough year, right?
Yeah.
And optimism at times is there and optimism at times is not there. And we all know that we're still in the midst of this pandemic, the COVID-19. It seems as if it's still highly transmittable. It seems as if it's still virulent, but it's not as bad. It may have mutated somewhere along the line. And being a pediatrician, what has been your experience with COVID with your patients?
So far in the pediatric generation and in the office itself, we've had a lot of kids that have tested COVID positive. Mm-hmm. Fortunately, though, we haven't had many of those kids turn severe in the sense that we've had to send them to the hospital or there have been any complications. So that's with me and my colleagues. Like I said, fortunately, we haven't had any severe cases where they've been, what we've been hearing about with the adults that, they ended up on a ventilator or they're in oxygen. Pretty much we've seen that they have a fever for a day or two. Sometimes they don't even have a fever. They just have a runny nose and the parents were positive. So that's how they got the kids tested and they ended up positive as well too. Right. And a lot of them, I would say 9 out of 10 are asymptomatic.
Right. And I've noticed that. And what are some of the other signs and symptoms to educate our listeners today that you would find in a pediatric population from COVID?
So fever, of course, is number one. Number two, congestion, runny nose is another one that we've been seeing with some kids. Just overall fatigue and, just lethargy, muscle aches or pains, and then coughing. So kids with minimal wheeze or coughing, that's another one that, we've seen in some kids that have been COVID positive.
My son in April, I remember him waking us up and he had a bit of a fever. He said he was very tired and he had some GI distress. He had some stomach aches and he slept in the bathroom on the floor because it felt cool for him, he said. So, okay, if that's where you're going to sleep, buddy. The dogs came in, they were lying down with him. And he got up the next day and goes, oh, I feel good. So it seems like with the pediatric population, they're able to fight this a lot better, right?
Yes. So they're able to, their immune systems seem that with this particular virus, they're able to get back to their normal cells much more quicker than if they were to have the flu virus. I've seen kids end up on extreme with the flu virus, which ironically enough, I haven't had even one case of flu.
Really? So you haven't had one case of the flu, influenza at all? Interesting.
No. And we've been testing since October for flu, and we have the flu test we could do rapid in the office. We'll find out. And by this time we would have had, at least 50, 60 cases of flu minimum. And we haven't even had one, not even one.
I find that interesting. I find that interesting. And I was reading in some journal where they were saying that the flu season for this season that we're in right now is actually going to be very, very mild.
Yes.
So that just goes along with what the experts are saying.
Yes.
Now there's thoughts around what should we do with this COVID, and you and I off the podcast and in different conversations that you and I have had, we would like to see individuals boost their immune system some, and we'd like to see them have a strong immune system. What are some ways that a child specifically can boost their immune system?
So me and you probably have two different takes on this for how to boost the immune system for children. But of course, food is definitely medicine. So this is one thing I tell all families, and of course to help their kids in, is that if they were to eat a healthy diet, they're to eat more non-processed foods, more foods with fruits and vegetables that have the vitamins in it already. You're having vitamin C, you're having things with iron in it and zinc in it. So you're eating nuts, or if you're able to and you're not allergic to it, and foods that are organic. So if you are eating any sort of eggs or chicken or anything like that, try to pick more organic rather than and hormone free rather than otherwise. So that's number one. So your food and your dietary choices are very important for preventing a lot of these viruses. Second thing is your exercise. And that's going to help your lymphatic flow. So a lot of us now are home, we're working from home. The kids are doing their virtual at home. So a lot of the times when I'm doing the well visits, and I'll ask them that, what are you doing for exercise? Because they don't have sports anymore either. A lot of those are canceled and it's cold outside.
Great question. I think that's a great question to ask patients. Yes.
Yeah. And a lot of them are not doing any exercises. So I tell them, you have your iPad, you have your computer, and there is plenty of classes and there's a lot of videos on YouTube that you can put on. You could do as a family. You can get that going. You could get a jump rope, go do the jump rope. You could do sit-ups. Right. You can do push-ups. You could do so many things, right? We know that. So many things that you could do at home that it's going to help your lymphatic flow, which in turn is going to build your immune system. So that's very, very important for the kids to do, which we're educating on their well visits. When they are coming to me, we are talking about that.
And why I'm smiling, everybody, is that just before we came on, my son called, and Dr. Khullar heard the conversation that I had with my son, where I said, okay, buddy, you have to read for an hour and a half. And I forgot. I got to call him back. He's got to write, and he's got to write write about what he read. And I said, all right, he plays hockey, as everybody knows. And I said, we got push-ups, we got sit-ups, we got other things that we got to do today. And Dad's in work, so you're going to have to do it alone. So I find I find that fascinating. Yes, it's very important.
So I loved hearing that. I love that. And that's why I was smiling when you were talking to your son. I said, okay, he would be a wonderful family and patient for me to see, because they actually are doing, what you preach. So that's very important, so that's number two. And then of course, vitamins for kids are important if they're not good with their diet. So if they're not having enough vitamin C, they're not having enough vitamin D. There's been correlations with lower vitamin D and not warding off viruses. So we do talk about that, making sure that you're optimizing food-related vitamins, but if not, then you're taking a multivitamin for kids. So that way we can make sure that your immune system is healthy in that sense too. Vitamin D has a lot to do with your mood. So we've been seeing a lot of kids with anxiety. We've been seeing a lot of kids with mild depression, and a lot of them are just, their mood is very down since this whole thing started. So it's going to help in that sense as well too. So we do talk a lot about mood and their effect, and how they're socializing, who they're talking to, what they're doing to kind of make sure that they're not feeling like they're all alone.
Oh, those are great points. And as I'm looking over here, I'm writing, and as you're making points, I'm circling as you're saying it. So we are living in parallel universes. And one of the aspects of children that I've seen, you said school socialization, because I remember the last day of school, home, you know, they're essentially being homeschooled. They're on Teams, they're on Zoom right now, and whatever the school has. I remember walking in from work the last day, and my wife and my son were ready to do battle because it was different. It's different for them, right? Because they're used to being in with their friends. They have their little posse that they're hanging out with at lunchtime. And now they're not doing anything. They're just they're not having that socialization, which is extremely important, correct?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
And so I find it interesting that when they were home, it was a whole different venue for not only them, but for the parents in addition to. And now they have to be more involved where they're not as involved during the course of the day because that was the teacher's responsibility. So, and I love it that you correlated that with vitamin D because a lot of kids are feeling down. I've noticed that. Yeah. And vitamin D helps out with anxiety and depression, bone health, muscle health, brain health. Can help prevent the cold and flu and all of that stuff. There's a ton of studies on that. Let's talk about food for a second. Let's talk about processed foods. What are processed foods? Why are they bad?
So any foods that come in boxes and packages, right? So those are all processed, but versus if you look at food, you see celery, you see tomatoes, that's, you know, whole foods. That's the foods that you should be eating that, you know, that don't have so many ingredients and chemicals that you can't even pronounce the names when you go to read it. So a lot of the processed foods, if the packages and boxes, they have dyes or they have certain ingredients in it that are linked with hyperactivity and things of that sort, which has also been a big concern for a lot of parents because now that they're home, they're watching their kids doing their virtual. The biggest concern is their attention span is not there. They're fidgeting, they can't focus. So a lot of it has to do with lack of activity and the processed food and the dyes in the food and all that kind of stuff, not optimizing certain other healthy fats that you're supposed to eat in the day. Maybe you're supposed to have some things like if you're good with seafood, fish oils are really good to incorporate. So a lot of that, you know, just has to be talked about during the visits when we see them. Is just differentiating that.
I mean, I can probably talk about, you and I probably talk about this for 5 hours. We can have a podcast just on
that's a whole topic on its own.
You know, just on this alone. Where if you're eating those box foods, it's toxic. It has the dyes in it. And one of your special interests is ADHD and anxiety for children. And having those processed foods are really bad. So if you have ADHD, my son's been diagnosed with ADHD, processed foods are bad. You know, study was done. It was in Spain, and it was last year at this time, Mayo Clinic proceedings, where those living in Spain, the children are getting away from eating a Mediterranean or a modified Mediterranean diet, which is what you were saying before, fishes and nuts and healthy fats, and they're eating a lot of ultra processed foods. So when you and I read a journal, we're looking at p-values, we're looking at hazard ratios, we're looking at all of that stuff, but I don't remember any of that stuff from this article. What I remember is that these ultra processed foods are readily available. Yes. They're highly palatable and they're extremely affordable. So during the pandemic, everybody's going to the center of the store to purchase, right? Instead of to the outside where the fruits and the veggies are. Everybody's buying that along with toilet paper in the beginning. So those processed foods, they have omega-6 fatty acids in it, and it gets that inflammatory cascade going and it brings down your immune system. Talk a little bit about omega-3s and omega-6s and why they're important, because fats are important when you're growing up.
Yeah. So they help with brain health. They help with your eye health. So they're helping build certain building blocks in your body that are just that are helpful for a normal growth for a child, especially when they're little. From age 1 to 2, we do recommend that fat be incorporated at a higher level because of the development and the eye development and everything like that. So that's why the DHA and the fish oil and all that kind of stuff is talked about. A lot of pediatricians talk about fat from milk at that age, but I talk more about fat from fish or, peanuts or nuts and things like that to be incorporated, only because we're trying to get away from so much dairy as well too. Dairy, that's a big hot topic, I think, as well too.
Yes, it is.
There being inflammation and related inflammation. I've been seeing a lot of kids having side effects because of a cow's milk, dairy being incorporated in their diet. So
yeah, that happens a lot in my practice. I see that a lot where they would have dairy. They're having, we'll do a food sensitivity test and they're having an intolerance to it. And it seems not only to be the children, it's also the adults that are there. So for those that are listening, as we always say, we love to motivate, educate, and inspire. Please, when you come to see Dr. K and I, ask us, what foods you should be eating and what foods you should be avoiding, because it's very important. Stay away from the box stuff, the macaroni and cheeses that are coming in that dye, the yellow dye. That stuff is not really healthy for you. Now, exercise, you mentioned, is extremely important. So kids today, no matter if they're in Covet, right, or not, they're on this a lot, right? Or they're on some type of game. And I did a podcast earlier this week, and we were discussing how we limit the amount of time that our children, and you have a young child also, right? So the amount of time that they can do it. It seems like it's part of a socialization process because their friends are on it right now, right? And everybody's kind of hanging out, as my son says. What are your thoughts on the iPads and the iPhones and so forth, especially during this time of COVID, because they have more time to do it?
Yeah, so I feel, there's two different age groups that, you could talk about with the iPads and the iPhones. So one is the teenage group or the young adults groups that have been using a lot of the iPhone for social media purposes. They're using it to play games or against their other friends on the iPad or on the iPhone. And they're using it, of course, to chat with their friends. So for those particular things, I tell the teenage kids, use it for what it's made for. It's made for a mode of communication for us to chat with our friends, catch up with family. You want to see how everyone's doing. You're isolated in the house. You want to see pictures from everybody. Use it for that purpose. But there's so many other things you can do outside of that, reading a book in the library, that's a whole foreign concept now. I mean, we used to go to the library and I forgot what was that called. We used to look through those. I'm gonna say the word because I barely watch movies, but I was watching a movie and it was from the 70s and 80s, the theme, and it was a microfiche. Is that what you're thinking of? Yeah, so we used to go to the library.
You can go through it.
That was the thing to do at that point. We had Encyclopedia Britannica. We used to look through all of that, and we had ample and free time to think of creative ideas. And that's where all these creative ideas are made, when you have that downtime, free time. We're constantly stimulated as a society, and that's what I keep telling the teenagers. It's okay to use these electronics, but use it for the purpose what it's made for, and have a balanced day. Have some time for exercise, have some time for catching up with friends, have some time for yourself and reading a book or doing a hobby that you really like, or playing an instrument that you like. As long as it's done in balance, it's healthy. But when it's all you do all day long. It's those kids that I see, they come in looking like zombies completely. They've
Right.
gotten no sleep because of it, because it's causing issues with their sleep
Right.
and insomnia, which decrease, affects their stress hormone, which is going to affect their immune system in turn. So we do talk a lot with the teenagers about this. With the younger kids, I think it's sometimes related to with the parents being so busy at work.
Right.
And they feel that if they hand them the iPad, they hand them the electronic,
They're
they'll stay
entertained for
quiet.
the rest of the day, right? That's
Right.
it.
Right. But what happened to things that they can build, or Legos that they can build, or maybe they can play their clay? Yes, they're going to make some noise. They're going to drop things. It's going to be an inconvenience, but it helps them develop that creativity and that imagiation that a lot of kids are lacking now. And
Very important points you were
yeah.
making, Dr. K.
Yeah.
100% use it what it's used for.
Yeah.
And you know what? When I'm doing a telehealth or telemedicine and my son's in the next room and, he's doing something, he's being creative, it's actually a joke I make out of it if there's noise coming out of it, right? So, none of my patients have gotten upset over it. So I love that where you're telling them, go build, go be a child,
Oh, yeah.
get them a puzzle, get them the Legos. So what if they're making a mess? That's what they're supposed to do in part, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think that's great. I have a friend who's a neuropsychologist who says to his own children, you can go on the social media and all of that, but that's after everything is done during the course of the day that needs to get done. You don't wake up in the morning, right? And that's the first thing you need to do. You need to take care of schoolwork if you're home or you're going to school, and then you have your activities, extracurricular activities. Maybe you're part of the student council, maybe you're playing sports, whatever that is, like you said, whatever that passion is, it's important to do. And that helps also boost the immune system because you're living your life, right? And you're being creative.
Right. And I think that's with adults too. And I think we spend a lot of time on the phone and we don't realize it. So much time goes by on it on social media. And there's a big link with mood disorders or mild depression because of that. You're comparing yourself constantly. You're constantly feeling down because you see images of people who have, of course, they've done things to make them look very slim and beautiful. So you're thinking, oh my God, I'm not doing enough. So you're down on yourself a lot because of that. So I think, for everybody, I think that's the same case. As long as it's balanced, I think and done in a healthy way, there's no harm.
I love that. So you mentioned vitamin D. What other vitamins and minerals do you think are important? I know this can be a hot topic, but there is some research now that's coming out of some hospitals in New York City and from around the country where there are certain vitamins and minerals that can be beneficial during this time.
Yeah, so lately I've been mentioning vitamin D and vitamin C. So if you're not eating enough of that in your diet from your fruits, then we do talk about that vitamin C because it helps for your immune system. We're talking about zinc. So we say if you don't have zinc, and they do have certain pediatric vitamins that have that in a whole formulation where they have zinc, C, and elderberry. So a lot of the patients will find ones that have that combination plus a multivitamin.
Right.
And like I said, there's no harm in the kids taking those vitamins. A lot of the times there's a lot of talk about probiotics, certain probiotics, because if you keep your gut healthy and you keep that clean, there's no inflammation in your gut, that works externally and that affects your health as well too, whether you have other inflammatory conditions related to it, but it all starts from your core, from your gut. So another big thing that we talk about with kids who may not, or they're always complaining of stomach pain. After talking about dietary changes, we do mention probiotics, maybe adding that if they have constipation issues and whatnot. So that's another thing that we talk about as well. Drinking lots and lots of water, of course, is very important, which is, you know, a lot of people overlook. It's very, and including me, I'm very bad at it. So I have to keep a full jug next to me and keep drinking it throughout the day.
I'm looking at it across the, I'm looking at my jug across the table, across the conference table. I'm in the office right now, and I'm in the conference room. So it's across the table. I should have brought it over here, but it's very important. And I'm glad you brought up gut health, because gut health is garnering a lot of research right now in the medical community, and there's a lot of positive stuff that's coming out of adding in a probiotic, which is very important. And I what you said before also is make sure you get it from good food sources, organic foods, fruits and vegetables, because diet is always number one. If you and I think that one of our patients requires the multivitamin or zinc or whatever it is, of course we're going to recommend that, but we want to make sure that they're getting it first from their diet before we're saying, because you can't out supplement a bad diet, right?
Yes, absolutely.
That is very important. Now, talk to me, especially in the younger generation. My son's getting into this, and it helps boost your immune system. It helps with cognition, sleep. Why is sleep important?
Yeah, so sleep is linked to your stress hormone, right? So your cortisol is linked with that. If you have poor sleep habits and you're up till late, whether up till late doing work or you're up till late on the phone, you're not getting that good optimized, 7 to at least 8 hours in a day. And it's not only just sleep, it's good quality sleep. It's, sometimes you feel like, okay, I'm getting that sleep, but it's very disturbed sleep. That's also not good quality sleep. So you have to make sure that you're sleeping appropriately, and it's of that nature. And so for that, you have to build good sleeping habits. And for that, you have to probably let go of electronics an hour before sleeping. Maybe try doing things or supplements that help you if you do have problems. Sometimes magnesium is something that I talk about, that if you're having problems with sleeping, that sometimes it does help relax you a little bit, and it does help for people who are constipated, or kids. A lot of kids are constipated. They're on high carb diets. So we talk about magnesium.
When you talk about high carb diets, it's cupcakes and things of that nature that they're eating, right?
They're doing a lot of like chicken nuggets and pasta and things like that, and not a lot of fiber, so not a lot of fruits and vegetables. And realistically, that's what I'm hearing from a lot of the kids. So because of that, then I do recommend, if this is what you're going to eat, then you're going to try taking a magnesium before sleeping, and try building better sleep habits. Maybe read a book before sleeping. Make sure you exercise during the day so you actually feel tired.
Right. You kind of exhaust yourself, quote unquote, if you will, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to exercise just before you go to bed, because then your adrenaline is rocking, and at that point you got everything going. Your mind is racing, your body is racing, and it's of course you want to make sure that you do that. So let's switch gears now a little bit. We're talking about health and COVID and building your immune system. Those are great recommendations, just general recommendations. You have special interest in ADHD. It's become a special interest of mine because of my son. A friend of mine who is a MD in Texas, Dr. Kirk Parsley, he has a supplement line. He's called the Sleep Remedy. He's the sleep doctor, and he thinks a lot of ADHD. He's doing research. My son's peripherally involved in the research. We're getting some metrics where some of the ADHD could be kids are just not getting enough sleep. Let's talk ADHD. What is it? And let's just start there. What is ADHD?
Sure. So attention deficit disorder is something where we could be able to diagnose, or we send patients to a neurologist, neuropsychiatrist for the diagnosis. And there's like a set of questions that we use the Vanderbilt questionnaire to question them, that what kind of problems are they having in school? So a different environment rather than in home, because sometimes if it's just in the house and it's not in the school, it could be just behavioral or related to, the family members or whatnot. But so you have to have these criteria that we score at the end of the form that are positive in an external environment as including an internal environment. And they're all heading in the direction that the child is either impulsive, that they have a hard time focusing on their academic workload, they're reading the same line over and over, and they're putting in the work, but the comprehension or how much it is actually getting received is just not there.
Right.
So a lot of it is for that reason. But there's also kids that on the same questionnaire have that activity related ADHD, the hyperactivity component of it. For those kids, we see them as soon as they come in the office, we know which ones they are. They have a very hard time sitting still. They're running from one door to the other. They're cutting in between when we're talking. And they're like that in school as well. So they're hyperactive at the home environment as well as the school environment as well too. So because of that, these kids are having trouble, and they come to our attention because either the teachers or another external environment bring it to the parents' attention. The parents want to get them evaluated, and that's where we come into play.
Right. It seems like there's been a lot of diagnosing going on it because we've become more aware of it. And even in my office, there is an uptick in ADHD patients coming in, not only children, but adults. And what we're seeing in the children, and of course, you can corroborate this, is that they just get up in the middle of class. They're blurting things out.
Yes.
And it's not that they're doing it to be hurtful. And this is what I'm finding out also. This is what I'm seeing, is that when I'm talking with the parents or the teacher, I get permission from the parents to talk to the teacher. They're not hurtful. It's just that this is kind of the way it's wired, if you will, right now. And, there's things like neuroplasticity that can help. There's things that are like nutritional interventions that can help. And there's some medications. So talk about some of the medications that can be beneficial.
So there is stimulants, of course, that's the one that everybody kind of knows about. So there's the common one that has been around for a while, which is called Ritalin, which is short-acting stimulant. And then there's also ones that are long-acting stimulants that work for a longer course of time, for a longer part of the day. So you could look at Focalin, Vyvanse, those are longer acting stimulants. Sometimes the kids are having trouble just with those alone. So sometimes we have to do both. We have to do a long acting stimulant in the morning, in combination in the afternoon, a short acting stimulant to last them the entire day. So that's the most common medication that I put my kids on when we do see them in the office.
Now, do you recommend any specific nutraceuticals in addition to?
So for any vitamins and things like that?
Yeah, any vitamins and minerals for ADHD? Do you make any of those recommendations in addition to?
Yeah, so we make sure, first of all, how is their diet? Is it a steady diet, or they're having sugar? And which is going to cause that high and low, which is going to cause problems in their activity level. So we do go over diet in detail before we even get to the medication part. Then we talk about it. If they're not going to eat that diet, a lot of parents are like, I can't help it. He is going to eat only pasta and that's all he eats. Then we have to put the child on a multivitamin, especially B6. We talk about a lot of B6. We talk about fish oil. We talk about D. And I also, like I was saying previously, we talk about magnesium at nighttime for the kids with attention deficit, because we also, along with diet, talk about sleep, because there's a correlation.
Right.
That somehow the kids who have the attention deficit are also not getting that proper sleep at nighttime. So optimizing that sleep with the help of changes that we have to make, or if we have to make dietary changes, we have to add certain vitamins in there. And the foods, we have to make sure that they're healthier foods. They're carbs, but they're healthy carbs. So not maybe it's
high impact carbs.
Right.
You know, for the children listening today, you're going to hate me for saying this, and I'm going to smile. A high impact carb is broccoli or cauliflower, as opposed to, you know, those pretzels or those potato chips with the dip and so forth, because, you know, once you start eating those types of foods, they are addictive, as we were saying before, those processed foods. One of the three was it's highly palatable. And, so we don't want you to be on that. And they're kids, so they're going to have a slice of pizza when they get to become teenagers, after school, after the game, right, Dr. K? It's not like they're never going to have a slice of pizza. So for the parents out there, if you remember when you were in high school, you know, after school, after the football game, whatever it was, after you had your extracurricular activity, you went and you had a slice of pizza with your friends, and you had a can of Coke. I draw the line at the Coke. I don't want that. But they're going to have that every now and again. It's going to be something. But overall, like you said before, we want to balance out their diet as much as we possibly can.
And so I tell for the parents, because a lot of parents are busy. So I tell them, okay, every Sunday, you're going to do your grocery shopping. Just pre-cut everything. Cut you know, if you want to cut carrots, keep it in a box and keep them ready. Keep the yogurts ready. So keep the cucumbers cut and grapes ready. So that way you have everything. If the child gets hungry or they need a snack, they can easily pull it out. And that would be their first go-to. Water, make sure they're optimizing their water. That would be another go-to. A lot of it's boredom nowadays, that you're bored, so they're snacking the entire time.
Right, you're bored. You're at home. You're not going out. There's an uptick in the pandemic. You're staying a little bit more. You got your iPad. You're doing whatever game. I get bored like that too. Of course, you're going to eat, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And we try to be as realistic as possible, that, okay, this is your habits. How can we kind of offset that a little bit and balance it out for you? What can we add into your regimen? So we do talk a lot about lifestyle changes, which incorporate the parents as well, because obviously we need the parents' help for us to get to that point.
They have to be on board, because if they're not on board, they're not on board, it becomes very difficult at that point.
Yes.
So gut health is also important for ADHD too, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Let's discuss a little bit of that.
So we say same exact idea with the foods that you're eating. We do recommend the particular foods that are good for your gut health. We talk about probiotics for those kids as well too. So we do incorporate that in the discussion for attention deficit as well too. Because sometimes if their diet is poor already, the amount of nutrients that they're taking up is not optimized. So that's why the gut health is very, very important with attention deficit.
It is. And what we like to do in the office is, if we do a food sensitivity test or we do intestinal permeability tests, we get very specific, right, on what foods they should be eating that's working with their biochemistry and their metabolism, and which foods that they should be avoiding. Because you can get organic chicken. Theoretically, it's great. But if you're having an inflammatory reaction to that, let's get another protein source that is better for each individual patient. I think that's important also. Let's talk about anxiety, because there's, I'm seeing it in my pediatric population that I'm treating. They are a little bit more anxious, with this. They're watching mom and dad, they're being anxious, maybe they're hearing conversations that you ordinarily wouldn't hear. It's like, mom and dad aren't working as much right now. And so money's a little tight. So they're a little anxious. So now it's going down into the children. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's definitely been a huge problem this year, that we've been seeing a lot of young adults and teenagers come in with anxiety. And a lot of it is, oh my God, the mask went a little bit down. They start getting a panic attack that they're going to get COVID, or you know, what's going to happen? I'm getting a little cough. I'm getting a little sore throat. Do I have COVID going on? So that is where the anxiety is stemming from. And you're very right. It's coming from whatever discussion they're hearing, the news channels sometimes being on and hearing.
Turn off the news, turn it off, turn off the news, turn it off.
Absolutely. So they're having an effect from that. So what I tell the kids to do is a lot of mindfulness practices once I find out that this is what's going on with them. Like, we have to make sure that whatever activity they're doing, they're completely present in that activity. And that takes a lot of brain training for you to do that. If you're working on or you're drawing something, make sure if your mind heads in different directions, which it will, you have to retrain it to focus on really enjoying that activity that you're really doing. And you have to keep refocusing. So mindfulness is important. The exercise, like I said, we talked about, a lot of kids are not doing that. So for the teenage kids, I'll say, you're not doing any activity, at least put on something you can listen to and go for a walk, bundle up, put a hat on, put a scarf on, and just go for a walk, listen to just Zen music, chilled music, and at least do that, or listen to a podcast like yours.
That's right.
Or listen to other motivational speakers, inspirational speakers. You have to keep your vibration at that level for you to improve that feeling, because otherwise how you're feeling is what you're going to attract more of in your life. And we talk a lot about the law of attraction, and it's a very different level than pediatric or what pediatricians talk about. But I've learned a lot of that, and we share a lot of that with them, that you have to keep yourself up there. So we talk about that. We talk about doing things that they particularly like. So if one particular patient likes dancing is meditative, really meditative for a lot of them who enjoy it. So I said, do more hours of dancing. It adds more value to you, you know, and make sure you're enjoying it for the time that you're doing it for. So we talk a lot about certain hobbies that they should take up. There's a lot of talk about essential oils. So a lot of them say, could we do diffusers with lavender oils? Epsom salt, why not? You know, it's something that you can use that relaxes you. It's
a relaxing type of a thing.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So you need that. Basically what we're saying is you need that downtime to do nothing sometimes, which kind of resets your body a little bit.
I love that you're mentioning this, and I think it's great. Even if you're walking, you can listen to some meditative music. You can get into a meditative state. You know, even if you're not in a meditative state and you want to walk or you want to run, you know, whatever it is, you're just going to feel better. You're going to boost your immune system. And you know what I'm saying, Dr. K, to a lot of patients right now is that, listen, if you can, just walk 15 minutes after dinner outside. 15 minutes one way, then 15 minutes coming back. You know, just to get out helps with your digestion, helps clear your mind, brings down the stress and anxiety levels, increases some of the good hormones that you feel better about yourself, and
you're in
so
nature.
Forth.
You're in nature. You're getting all of that good value. You're smelling that fresh air, which a lot of us being cooped in are not getting that fresh air. Our bodies are meant for that, you know, and I tell the parents
the sunshine.
Very important. So we tell vitamin D, of course, is another one that we were talking about earlier with mood disorders. We make sure they're not vitamin D deficient. We do make sure that they're not snoring at nighttime. So that way their sleep is optimized. Sometimes if your adenoids are really large or obstructive, that's going to cause problems with good quality sleep. And then those patients are more likely, not always, but more likely to have these attention deficit or anxiety or other related issues. So sleep is that vital that we have to kind of dig deep into these things that they're doing throughout the day.
I think it's very important, and you've said it multiple times here. It's a balance. It's a balance. So if you're home on the weekend and you can't get out, you know, for an entire day, because you know, I remember being, you know, 12, 13, we just got up and we were out. We didn't come home until you know, all hours of the night. My father would be driving around looking for me. In the summertime, I'm playing baseball, leave me alone. He would get mad at me, by the way. But you know, one of the things we did in my house is I took my son and we went out and we threw the baseball around. We shot baskets. We got a little court. we shot baskets, we went for a run around the neighborhood. We were out, we took the dog for a walk. It was great. I mean, the dog is having a great time. It's a family event now, and it's nice. And you get to talk to your children also,
Yes.
which is important, right?
Yes, absolutely. We used to, as little kids, do the same things, just like you. We used to play a lot of board games with families. We didn't have all this, electronics or anything like that growing up. So either we were playing outside, we were
Right.
home with the family, that time we always had dinner together, and it was
Mhm.
quiet. We chatted, we talked about our day, which is so important. It's therapeutic to talk, because you can only stay so long without keeping everything inside. It's
Right.
it's very natural to do that. And then we would play board games after we'd be done,
Right.
Monopoly for hours or Scrabble for hours. And with that, we would laugh, we would joke. I don't really see a lot of that happening. I don't even see discussions of that so much. Everyone is so busy, and I'm not sure busy doing what, but everyone's busy and trying to achieve something that we're
Right.
missing the point.
And I think what you're saying is important, because being the father of a child who has ADHD, communicating with him is vitally important. I have found out, knowing what's going on in his head, and what's he thinking about when something happens at school. And I found out that once we have these discussions, his behavior is better. He's better for himself. He's better for himself. And, I think that's important. We spoke a lot about pivoting in business during COVID, because you want to keep the economy going, because, investments and all of that, you want to keep the economy going. But I wanted to take it to another level, where I'm pivoting with family also, where now there's this opportunity, to go out and throw the ball, and just talk to him as we're throwing the ball, and teaching him how to throw the ball, teaching him how to hit the baseball, teaching him the finer arts of the jump shot from 20 foot out. He's gotten pretty good at it, though. So his 20-foot jump shot is really good. But just the conversations that we've had are, invaluable as far as I'm concerned. So
And
not only take it from the physical standpoint, but the mental standpoint is what we're discussing right now, right?
yes, and I love hearing that. And it's so funny. I wish there was more families like that. I live in a community complex area, and I probably have seen one family, one child out, and it's been all month.
Right.
Not many people out, not many people doing anything together, and socializing like that, what you're talking about. At least within the family, you can go around, you can ride a bike. I know it's cold. You could still bundle up, put some gloves on, hats on, scarves on, and you can have that family time outside.
Right. And what we're saying is, you're not going to go out and run a 10K. That's not what we're
Right.
saying. You're not running
Right. Even a walk.
6.22 miles right away.
Right.
I get my son up on Saturday and Sunday, because there's no games in hockey right now.
Yeah.
And I'll get him up around 7:30. By 8 o'clock, we're out. We'll do our 3 or 4 miles, and then we do a little workout, and we're ready to go for the next, for the rest of the day. But if you're not used to that, just a simple walk in your neighborhood, and you can say hello to a neighbor too when you're doing that.
That's a crazy concept there.
Yeah, absolutely.
In New Jersey, someone says hello to you, you're looking around like, what does this person want?
Well, we are in New Jersey, and I'm a New Jersey boy through and through, but that's okay. It's all good. That's a podcast for another time.
All on its own, exactly.
We're almost up on our hour, believe it or not. And I feel like we just started. So, we're going to have you back on again, because there's so much that we can discuss with pediatrics and nutrition and ADHD and different types of conditions that you and I see in our respective offices. So before we get off, is there any other aspect that you want to discuss, that you want to impart some clinical pearls to our listening audience today?
Yeah, there is, now that a lot of patients are more into natural medicines and natural vitamins and things like that. There's this one thing that actually, I would love to hear from you of what's your take on it, especially because it's helpful, or it's shown to be helpful for allergies and asthma, is quercetin.
Yes.
And what are your thoughts about that for pediatric patients, and how does it affect them in a beneficial way, if any?
That is a great question. Thank you for asking that. We recommend, it's turmeric or it's quercetin. They're derivatives. They're inflavonoids, and they are very good to help boost the immune system. It's one of those products that you can take. It's safe for children to take. It's safe for adults to take. It is really one of my go-to, vitamins, especially during this time. So you want to make sure you get a product that is, how can I say it? That's good. That's pharmaceutical grade. So you got to watch where you're purchasing it, which is very important. It's been known to help those that have high cholesterol. It's been known to help also regulate sugar. We don't say fasting plasma glucose because people are like, what are you doing? I got to regulate my sugar, right? So it's been known to help regulate sugar. It's been known to help out with certain neurocognitive conditions. So it is a safe product to take. You got to get a pharmaceutical grade one, and it is something that we do recommend on a regular basis.
Yeah. And that's been something that some patients have brought up to me, which I don't have that much knowledge about. I have knowledge about turmeric because being of Eastern descent, we do use a lot of turmeric, a lot of ginger, a lot of garlic in our food, which is all very helpful, all anti-inflammatory. So
it is a great anti-inflammatory. It's a spectacular one that you can use, and it's good for overall health in bringing down that inflammatory process. Yes. In the Italian culture too, we have a lot of garlic. that we eat. We eat a lot of garlic. I was made fun of when I was younger, by the way, for eating all the garlic, and you smell a certain way, and and all of that. But that's
at least
okay.
I'm healthy.
At least I'm healthy is right. At least I'm healthy is right. So, Dr. K, is there anything else that's on your mind?
No, I think we got a lot. We talked about a lot on this podcast.
Yes, we did. There's more to talk about. We're going to have you back on. So I want to thank you for coming on. How can individuals contact you? They've listened to this. We recommend Dr. K. How can they contact you if they want to talk to you about becoming a patient?
Yes, so we have our office in Colts Neck, New Jersey. Our office is called Gold Star Pediatrics. They can always call us. You can look us up on Google. You could look up our reviews on Google. Our number, I'm sure you're going to put underneath this podcast, and the address as well too. So that would be the best way for you to reach out to us is by calling our office, and my girls would be more than happy.
We'll have that all in the show notes. Do you have a specific website also that they can go to?
We do have a website for our office. We also have an Instagram page. So we will provide you with all that information.
Dr. K, thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you so much, Dan.
It was a great hour. There's so much more to talk about. We'll get into that. I'm Dr. Dan, suburbanwellnessgroup.com. My number is 973-483-2277. Also in Howell, New Jersey at Greenleaf Be Well. Want to thank everybody for listening. We love to motivate, educate, inspire. This was a great conversation. Thank you very, very much for coming on, Dr. K.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Take care, everybody.